Ask 10 people what transparency means in AI governance, and you will get 10 different answers. Some will say it means publishing your algorithms. Some will say it means explaining decisions to affected individuals. Some will say it means disclosing what data you use. The truth is, it means all of these things in different ways for different audiences. And ISO 42001 requires you to make it operational, not aspirational. In this episode, we are building the stakeholder communication and transparency layer of your aims. We cover who your AI stakeholders are, what they need to know, how to communicate it, how to build feedback mechanisms, and what your reporting and documentation obligations look like under ISO 42001. Let's start with the fundamentals. Stakeholder identification is not a soft skill, it is a governance requirement. Clause 4.2 of ISO 42001 requires you to identify interested parties and determine their relevant requirements and expectations. Get this wrong, and your aims will have blind spots around the groups whose interests are most affected by your AI systems. The internal stakeholder map for most organizations includes employees who use AI tools in their daily work, the AI development and data science teams, legal and compliance, risk management, operations, and senior leadership. Each of these groups has different needs. Employees need to know what AI is being used and what it means for their work. Senior leadership needs governance performance data to make informed decisions. The external stakeholder map is broader and often underestimated. Customers whose data is used and who may be subject to AI decisions. They have rights under GDPR and other regulations. Business partners and suppliers who integrate with your AI systems. Regulators who oversee your sector. And in some domains, affected communities. For example, residents in an area where an AI system is used for infrastructure planning or public services. The output of stakeholder identification should be a stakeholder map that documents each group, their interest in your AI systems, their information requirements, and your planned communication approach. This is an auditable deliverable, documented properly. Transparency under ISO 42001 is not a single control. It is a principle that runs through multiple Annex A requirements. The core requirement is that stakeholders must be able to know what your AI systems do, what data they use, how they make decisions, and what the limitations are. Let me separate transparency into two levels that require different approaches. System-level transparency means communicating what your AI system does in general terms, its purpose, its inputs, its outputs, its intended use, and its known limitations. This is what your AI system card documents and what you communicate to users, procurers, and regulators. Decision-level transparency means explaining a specific AI decision to the individual it affects. Why was this loan application declined? Why was this job application rejected? Why was this medical claim flagged? Decision-level transparency is far more technically demanding and is where explainability techniques become critical. The EU AI Act requires decision-level explainability for high-risk AI systems, and ISO 42001 requires you to have assessed and documented your explainability capability as part of the impact assessment process. When I talk to data science teams about explainability, I often encounter a specific tension. They want to use complex models, deep neural networks, ensemble methods, gradient boosting, because they deliver the best predictive performance. But complex models are also the hardest to explain. The tension between accuracy and explainability is real, and governance requires you to make an explicit, documented decision about how you navigate it. The practical tools for explainability include LIME, Local Interpretable Model Agnostic Explanations, which generates explanations for individual predictions by training a simpler surrogate model locally. SHAP, Shapley Additive Explanations, allocates prediction contributions to individual input features. For any given prediction, SHAP can tell you how much each feature contributed to pushing the output higher or lower. These are powerful tools, but they are approximations, and your documentation should acknowledge that. For high-risk AI systems where explanation is legally required, consider whether model complexity is justified. A logistic regression model that achieves 85% accuracy and can be explained precisely may be preferable to a neural network achieving 87% accuracy that cannot. The 2% performance gain is rarely worth the explainability gap when regulatory compliance and human rights are at stake. Effective stakeholder communication requires different channels for different audiences. This is Governance 101. But it is worth stating explicitly because AI governance communication fails most often by treating all stakeholders the same. For internal stakeholders, your channels include your intranet AI governance page, a single authoritative source for AI policy, procedures, and updates, training sessions and onboarding materials for new employees, governance committee reports for senior management, incident bulletins for operational teams when AI-related issues arise. For external stakeholders, your channels include privacy notices updated to reflect AI processing, AI system cards for technical users, procurers, and regulators, annual transparency reports for organizations that make commitments to public transparency, and regulatory submissions. In sectors where regulators require AI system disclosure, your communication process needs to include these as a routine output, not an emergency response. Feedback mechanisms are the often missing element. Communication should not be one way. Build formal channels for stakeholders to raise concerns, ask questions, and provide feedback on AI governance. Document feedback received, how it was assessed, and what response was given. This feedback loop is both a governance requirement and a practical source of intelligence about AI risks you may not have identified internally. Reporting under ISO 42001 is not just about generating reports. It is about generating the right reports for the right audiences at the right frequency. Let me walk through the 4 main reporting streams your AIMS needs to maintain. Governance performance reporting to senior management covers KPI status, risk register changes, incident summary, audit finding status, and AIMS objective progress. Frequency, quarterly at minimum. Management review. A formal Clause 9.3 input covers all aspects of AIMS performance, produces decisions and action commitments. Frequency, at least annually, typically quarterly. Incident reporting. Internal escalation within defined SLAs, regulatory notification where legally required, post-incident reports for significant events. Documentation requirements for incidents are extensive. The incident log must be producible in full for any audit or regulatory investigation. Compliance documentation. The complete documentary record of your AIMS, policies, procedures, risk registers, SOA, audit reports, management review minutes, training records, impact assessments. All version controlled, all retrievable on demand. Documentation management is not glamorous, but a well-organized documentation system is one of the clearest signals of a mature AIMS to an external auditor. An AI system card is a structured document that summarizes everything a stakeholder needs to know about an AI system. Think of it as a product specification sheet, but for governance rather than technical features. Google and Hugging Face pioneered model cards for machine learning models. ISO 42001's transparency requirements create a governance obligation for something equivalent. Your AI system card should cover the system's name and version, its intended purpose, and the use cases it was designed for, the population it is intended to serve, the data it was trained on and its sources, its performance metrics and what they mean, its known limitations, what happens when the system encounters inputs outside its training distribution, who to contact with concerns, and when the card was last updated. The system card is a living document. It must be updated whenever material changes are made to the AI system. A model update, a new data source, a change in intended use, All of these are triggers for system card revision. And the system card version must be linked to the AI system version in your inventory. Consistency between your inventory, your system cards, and your deployed AI systems is something auditors specifically check. Let's finish with the moment everyone dreads when something goes wrong, because it will eventually. What counts as an AI incident? It could be unexpected outputs, a bias event surfacing, an outright system failure, or a privacy breach. The first thing that should happen is internal escalation. Your AI owner needs to be notified within a defined service level agreement, not whenever someone gets around to it. Speed matters here. Then comes external notification. Depending on the situation and the law, you may need to inform regulators, your GDPR Data Protection Authority, or relevant sector regulators as required. And finally, post incident communication. Here's my advice: earn the hard way watching others handle this badly. Be transparent, be factual, and focus on remediation. Don't spin it, don't bury it. Think about how you feel when a company you trust admits a mistake honestly and tells you how they're fixing it. You respect them more, not less. That honesty, even in a crisis, is the whole point of everything we've covered in this video.